Welcome to True Voice Shorts, a curated audio series that brings fiction, memoir, and reimagined classics to life, honoring language, voice, and the legacy of storytelling. This recording marks the first bonus release of True Voice Shorts under the Memories of Ink series, where we explore the traces we leave behind, memoirs, poetry, and reflections passed from generation to generation. True Voice Shorts is guided by a simple promise: immersive storytelling in 30 minutes or less. But some stories ask for a little bit more room to breathe. Holiday Table is one of those stories. This bonus release extends beyond the usual time frame because its purpose is not momentum, but presence. The piece lingers where memory lingers, at a table, in a shared silence, in the small mercies that carry us through winter. Rather than compressing those moments, this edition allows them to unfold naturally, honoring the rhythm of lived experience. Think of this as an invitation to slow down, to listen the way memories listen, to stay a little longer than planned. Querida Funck is a writer, narrator, and performance-focused storyteller whose works center on memory, voice, and the quiet human moments that often go unrecorded. Through True Voice Shorts and the Memories in Ink series, she explores how ordinary spaces become witnesses to grief, resilience, and connection. Her writing is shaped by a deep respect for oral history, lived experience, and the emotional intelligence of listeners. Querida's work spans original short fiction, adapted public domain literature, children's books, and performance editions designed for narration and storytelling. As both author and narrator, she approaches story as an act of care, believing that how a story is told matters as much as the story itself. Holiday Table reflects that philosophy fully. A story not about spectacle, but about gathering. Not about answers, but about warmth. Not about the season as it is advertised, but as is actually lived. Holiday Table. The arriving light. Winter settles differently on a small town. It doesn't just arrive. It seeps in, slow and certain, softening the edges of every familiar thing. The season starts with the faintest shift in the air, a cool breeze against the windows, a hush under the eaves. Even before the first snowflake lands, people begin moving differently, speaking differently, as if the world is reminding them to tread gently because the light is thinner now, and hearts feel their own weight a little more clearly. Inside the house at the end of Willow Street, the light is already turning gold. Lamps glow early in the afternoon, warming the corners where dusk lingers. A kettle murmurs on the stove. Something sweet and spiced fills the air. Vanilla, cinnamon, and a hint of orange rind drying on the counter. By the window, a strand of paper snowflakes taped to the glass flutters faintly each time the furnace exhales. At the center of it all stands a table. It's not remarkable at first glance, just a long wooden table with mismatched chairs and a few scratches that have stories of their own. But everyone who has gathered around it knows this table has been witness to a lifetime of seasons. It has held birthday cake and after-school snacks, family meetings, midnight confessions, and early morning coffee. It has seen arguments dissolve and laughter erupt. It has held elbows and tears and half-finished puzzles, and the heavy silence that comes with sudden news. The table is the heart of the house, and tonight it will become the heart of the season. Mara runs a hand along the polished grain, feeling the faint grooves left by years of living. She pauses near a mark shaped like a crescent moon, Her youngest had carved it accidentally with the tip of a fork during a holiday dinner 20 years ago. Oh, how he had cried, expecting punishment. But everybody laughed instead. That little mistake had become part of the family mythology, retold every winter since. She smiled at the memory. She put out the good plates and a sprig of pine cut from the backyard tree. A few sprigs, actually. She likes the way the scent rose when it warms the room. A pottery bowl goes in the center, filled with clementines whose pebbled skins release their oils with the slightest squeeze. On a small sideboard, a candle waits to be lit. Its label, handwritten, reads "First Snow." She lights it and watches. The flame lifts slowly, catching the room in a gentle halo. Most years, she would be bustling to get everything perfect by now, fussing over the arrangement of the chairs or whether the gravy would thicken in time. But this year, perfection feels unnecessary. The world isn't asking for shine, it's asking for sincerity. She can feel the truth humming in her chest. People arriving tonight won't come unburdened. No one does anymore. So she leaves the table a little imperfect, real, warm, inviting. The gathering started with the front door opening, a cold gust swirling in behind her neighbor, Tom. He stamps snow from his boots, even though there's no snow yet. It's a habit left over from 30 winters. He sets a tin of cookies on the counter and gives her a quiet smile. His wife passed 2 years ago, but he still comes to the winter gathering because this table had been part of their shared life for decades. Traffic was light, he says, though the drive is only 3 blocks. It's the kind of small mercy that can't get bought, showing up even when it still aches. Next arrives Lena, her arms wrapped around a bouquet of eucalyptus and red berries. She sets them down and exhales, letting her shoulders drop for the first time all day. She's been caring for her father since his surgery in the fall. Her hair is pinned back hastily, but her eyes soften when she sees the candle burning. "It smells like home in here," she whispers. Then comes the clatter of another set of footsteps. Mara's daughter, Rowan, with her husband and their little boy, Mark. Mark barrels straight into the room, cheeks flushed, mittens hanging from his sleeves like tiny flags of triumph. He goes straight to the bowl of clementines and breathes deeply, the way children do when they're discovering something for the first time, even if they've seen it 100 times before. "Oranges smell like sunshine," he declares proudly to no one in particular. And just like that, laughter rises, warm, unexpected, another mercy. By the time Jenna arrives, new to town, new to this table, and a little unsure of herself, the house hums with the soft music of settling voices. She hesitates in the doorway, uncertainty flickering across her face. Mara crosses the room and places a hand on her arm. "I'm glad you're here," she said simply. Jenna inhales shakily and something loosens in her posture. She steps inside. These arrivals aren't dramatic. They're not meant to be. They're the quiet kind, the ones that make a room fuller without making it loud, the ones that remind a person that belonging is often found in small, steady invitations rather than grand gestures. Mara watches as coats are shed, hands warmed, and greetings exchanged. The house glows brighter with each arrival, not because the lamps change, but because people carry their own light, even the tired ones, even the grieving ones. And once they step inside a place that welcomes them, the light grows taller. Later tonight, there will be a moment. There always is. A moment when someone will pause mid-conversation, take in the room, and feel the warmth rise in their chest. A feeling that says, "I'm held. I'm not alone." But that moment comes later. For now, the stirring begins. As Mara returns to the table, she thinks of the years behind her, the years when the house overflowed with voices, and the years when only 2 chairs were filled, the years when everything felt effortless, and the years when simply setting the table felt like an act of courage. Through it all, the table stood firm, a gathering place, a witness to mercy. She picks up a plate, places it gently, and then another, and then another. Each plate becomes an invitation, each chair a welcome, each moment of preparation a quiet vow. Here you will be cared for. The door opens again, someone calls her name, the room fills a little more, and the season, this gentle, imperfect, hopeful season, begins its own arrival. The table as witness. The table has always been the first to know when a gathering is about to become something more than a meal. It senses it in the way people touch it, lightly at first, then with more certainty. The way a person might reach for the railing of a familiar staircase in the dark. Tonight is no different. By the time everyone has arrived, the table has shifted from its daytime stillness into its evening purpose. The sprigs of pine relax in the warm air, releasing their scent. The clementines glow softly in the candlelight. The mismatched chairs scrape the floor in friendly, familiar notes as people find their places. Even the small scratches in the wood seem to grow more distinct, as if leaning forward to listen. Mara moves around the table with quiet ease. She adjusts a napkin here, centers a plate there. None of it's for show. It's simply how she readies herself through small motions that settle her breath and bring the room into focus. This table has held so many versions of her. The young mother who once rushed to keep children fed and happy. The newly widowed woman who sat in silence for an entire season, unsure how to fill the empty space across from her. The grandmother who watched Mark smear applesauce across the wood and declared it a masterpiece. The neighbor, the friend, the caretaker, the weary one, the hopeful one. Every version of her has touched this table. And tonight, she places both palms on its surface and feels steadied. Across the room, voices begin to soften into a gentle hum. Lena is telling Rowan about her father's new physical therapist, a miracle worker with the patience of a saint. Her words float through the air with equal parts exhaustion and relief. Tom, sitting near the far end, carefully folds and unfolds the corner of his napkin, listening to Michael describe Mark's latest theory about how snowflakes form. Each one is a tiny frozen sigh, the boy had apparently declared last week. Jenna stands near the doorway at first, hovering, not yet sure if she should sit. Mara gives her a small nod, a signal, an invitation. So Jenna moves toward the table with slow confidence, choosing a seat where she can see everything, but doesn't feel like she's in the center of things. The table makes room for her without fanfare. It always does. Mara lights a second candle, this one shorter, with a faint scent of cedar. The flames reflect in the nearest window, doubling the light. She watches the reflection steady itself, and for a moment, in the mirrored glow, she sees all the winters that came before. Her children laughing, her husband carving a turkey with exaggerated precision, Lena and Rowan as teenagers whispering secrets after dessert. Tom's wife humming softly as she passed the rolls. The table remembers all of it. And now it waits for tonight's story to unfold. Mara feels a tug at her sleeve. Mark stands beside her, holding a folded napkin shaped into something that might be a star, or might be a crumpled ball. She chose a star. "For the table," he says, handing it to her. She places it beside the fruit bowl. "It's perfect," she says. Mark beams and darts off again, already on to his next idea. A moment later, Rowan steps close, speaking softly. Need help? No, Mara says. Then amends the truth. Not with the table, just keep an eye on the room for me. Rowan follows her gaze and sees it too. The way people have come in carrying more than their coats. Tiredness, grief, hope, anxiety. Small joys tucked in pockets. Weariness draped over shoulders. Determination clasped quietly in hands. I'll help, Rowan says, touching Mara's arm gently. Around the table, people begin to settle. Lena rubs her palms together, warming them. Tom sits straighter, though his eyes are distant for a breath or two before sharpening again. Jenna pulls her chair closer, resting her fingertips lightly on the edge of the wood as though seeking reassurance. And Mara stands back for just a moment to take it all in. She knows that the table is more than a piece of furniture tonight. It will become the place where people will set down what they've been carrying. Even the things they don't speak out loud. It will listen without judgment. It will hold without breaking. Her voice, when she finally speaks, is gentle but steady. Everyone, go ahead and sit down. We'll begin in just a moment. Chairs shift, people settle. The candle flame dances. The table breathes in the room's warmth, and the night, quiet and without ceremony, prepares to open itself. Arrivals and small miracles. People don't arrive to a winter gathering empty-handed, even when there's nothing in their arms. They bring what the year has given them, what it has taken, what it has bruised, what it has mended, what it has surprised them with. Some of it's invisible, most isn't. Tonight is no different. The room has filled, but it hasn't settled yet. There's a gentle shifting as everyone adjusts to one another's nearness. Winter gatherings carry their own kind of vulnerability. People are softer this time of year, even the ones who try not to show it. Tom sits close to the window, where the last light of the day fades into dusky blue. His hands are folded neatly in his lap. He's always done that, kept his hands still when he's uncertain, as if anchoring himself to the moment. But since his wife passed, those hands have seemed quieter, more deliberate. Mara watches him for a moment. He meets her eyes and offers a faint, reassuring smile. She returns it. He is here. That's enough. At the far corner, Lena leans the bouquet she brought, fussing with the stems, as if she isn't sure where to put her own restlessness. Her father's recovery has been steady, but caregiving has a way of stretching thin the threads of a person's spirit. She looks tired in a way that sleep alone can't fix. Beautiful flowers, Rowan says, stepping beside her. They were on sale, Lena murmurs. Then, after a beat, I needed something that lasted longer than a day. Rowan nods. They'll last, she said softly. Lena exhales, some of her tension easing from her shoulder. A small mercy. Across the table, Jenna hovers without meaning to. She chooses a chair, then changes her mind, then sits again. Not because she's anxious. She simply doesn't know yet how she fits into this circle of histories and memories. She is the kind of person who has learned to take up as little space as possible until someone reassures her it's allowed. Mara walks over, touching the back of Jenna's chair lightly, and says, "That's a good spot. You'll like the view of the candlelight." Jenna exhales all at once. It's visible in the way her breath releases. Another quiet mercy. Near the table, Mark is making constellations out of the silverware. Forks arranged like ladders, spoons like moons. Michael crouches beside him, trying to decipher which star is which. "Is this one Orion?" he asks. "No, that's Pancake Star. Orion is over there." Mark points to a cluster of mismatched forks. Michael gives up trying to correct him and nods gravely. "Oh, of course, Pancake Star." Mark beams. He had been heard. Small mercies come in all forms. Mara returns to the kitchen briefly to fetch the serving dishes warming on the stove. As she does, she takes in the room from the doorway, seeing not just people, but the invisible things they've brought. Tom's quiet grief, Lena's tired hope, Jenna's hesitancy, Rowan's vigilance, Michael's gentle steadiness, Mark's boundless wonder. Winter doesn't ask people to be cheerful. It simply asks them to be honest. And tonight, the honesty is palatable. When Mara re-enters the room carrying a platter of roasted vegetables, the shift is almost immediate. People straighten, conversations pause. There's a kind of reverence, not for the food, but for the moment. The unspoken acknowledgement that a meal shared in midwinter carries a weight, a warmth, a memory waiting to happen. She sets the platter down, then smooths her hands on her apron. "All right," she says, "let's gather." Tom rises first. Lena follows. Rowan helps Mark climb into his seat. He immediately begins rearranging the salt and pepper shakers like sentries. Michael moves a chair closer for Jenna so she can see without feeling exposed. Everyone settles. The candle flames steady themselves as if preparing to bear witness. Mara stands at her place for a moment longer, hands resting on the back of her chair. She doesn't speak yet. She simply breathes. This is the moment she loves, the transition from arrival to belonging, when everyone is seated, when the noise of the day begins to fade, when the room leans inward as one. In this breath, the table feels alive. Mara lifts her gaze, taking in each face, each presence, each person carrying a whole year inside them. "Thank you for being here," she says softly. "This season asks so much of us, but it also gives us a chance to rest together." The words settle into the room like snow on branches, and the table, steady and silent, prepares for whatever comes next. The house is warm, the lights soft, the gathering steady. But no winter evening passes without a small shift in the air, a moment when one person's quiet ache rises close enough to the surface to ripple the room. It never crashes, it never breaks anything, but it reminds everyone that the holidays, for all their glow, carry a kind of gravity. Tonight, the gravity finds its way through the smallest crack. It begins with a sound, a single, sharp clatter. A serving spoon slips from the counter, hitting the floor with a metallic clang that startles Mark, who had been curled under the table constructing a snow tunnel out of napkins. His small head pops up, eyes wide, and he knocks over a stack of napkin stars he and Michael had been folding. "Oh, buddy, it's okay," Michael says, crouching down. But Mark's lower lip is trembling. "It sounds like thunder." "No thunder here," Michael reassures him, but the boy's eyes are very wide. Mara bends to pick up the spoon. The noise seems to linger longer than it should. Not the sound itself, but the reaction it sets off in the room. It's subtle, barely noticeable, unless you're the one hosting. Tom stiffens a little, his hands tightening on his glass. Lena flinches, not visibly, but enough for Mara to catch it. Jenna, uncertain of her role, steps away from the counter as if she's suddenly in the way. It's nothing, and yet it's something. Gatherings are like this, one tiny spark revealing the tenderness beneath. Mark calls out from under the table, holding the spoon triumphantly. "I saved it," he announces, unaware of the shift he has momentarily interrupted. Mara takes it from him gently. "Thank you, sweetheart." The moment should pass. It usually does. But tonight, it clings. Not heavily, but insistently. Because everyone in the room has brought something fragile with them. Tom rubs the back of his hand, staring at the spot where the spoon fell. Mara knows that look. She's seen it on him ever since his wife passed. Sudden noises feel like alarms to him now. Reminders that life can shatter without warning. "Are you all right?" she asks softly. He blinks. "Yes, just lost in thought." She nods, but doesn't push. Across the table, Lena's hands shake faintly as she reaches for her glass of water. Caring for her father has left her nerves stretched thin, so thin that sudden noises feel like a tug on a frayed thread. "You okay?" Rowan asks her. "Just tired," Lena murmurs. Rowan stays close, not hovering, just present. Some people need presence more than reassurance. And Jenna, still new, still tender, looks like she's debating whether she should gather her things and slip out before she disrupts anything else. She's the kind of person who learns quickly to remove herself at the first sign of tension. Mara reads it instantly. "Jenna," she says softly, "I'm so glad you came." Jenna swallows and nods. Some words land like blankets. These do. Small mercies begin to weave themselves back into the room. The spoon is back on the counter. The moment has passed, but to heal a ripple, someone must create a counterbalancing stillness. Mara reaches for the teapot. "Why don't we warm our hands a bit?" she says lightly. She pours a cup for Tom first, then for Lena, then for Jenna, then for Rowan and Michael. Mark receives his special cup, the enameled one with constellations on the side, for the star captain. Mark beams again. Order is restored in his little world. Tea warms hands, warm hands, calm hearts. The room begins to stitch itself back together, but the tension hasn't fully dissolved yet. As Mara pours her own cup, the scent of orange peel and cloves rise, and with it, a sudden memory. A cold kitchen, a winter long ago, a cup of tea held between two trembling hands, her mother's hands. It hits her with a weight she didn't expect. She closes her eyes, breathes once to steady herself. She isn't in that kitchen anymore. She is here with her people. "Mom?" Rowan's voice is soft but alert. "You okay?" "Just remembering," Mara says. She doesn't hide it. She doesn't push it away. Rowan leans her head against her mother's shoulder. "I miss her too." The ache softens. Shared grief does that. It soothes the edges. Around the room, the conversations restart. Tom tells Michael about a wood-carving project he's been avoiding finishing. Lena shows Rowan a picture of her father's walker, now decorated with gold tinsel. Jenna kneels beside Mark's snow tunnel, asking him how many stuffed animals can fit inside. The table watches all of it, bathed in candlelight. Mara moves to the kitchen to check the last dish, a tray of roasted vegetables perfectly caramelized. She brings them to the table, and people instinctively reach to help settle the tray. Everyone contributes to the room's resilience. "Looks wonderful," Tom says. "It really does," Lena adds. Mark, solemn with purpose, begins aligning the forks. "They have to point the same way, or the food gets confused," he declares. Mara raises an eyebrow at him. "Is that so?" "Very so," he nods firmly. The room laughs gently, and something shifts, a true, organic thaw. Hope begins to fill the room again, not loudly, not brightly, but steadily. Not the bold hope of miracles or grand finales, the humble hope of hands brushing, of shared breath, of people gently knitting each other back together after life has frayed them. They have walked through the moment of tension, and now, eased by small mercies, the evening turns towards warmth again. Turning mercy. By the time everyone finds their place again, the table looks exactly as Mara hoped, and nothing like a magazine spread. The napkins are slightly crooked. One of the candles leans left. Mark's silverware constellations still occupy the corner near his plate. A sprig of pine has shed a few needles across the runner. Someone, probably Lena, has tucked a clementine into the eucalyptus bouquet just because it amused her. It's perfect. It's beautiful. Mara stands at the head of the table, hands resting lightly on the carved wooden chair she has claimed for years. She looks at every face, really looks. Tom, with his careful hands and worn wedding band shining faintly in the candlelight. Lena, still tired but no longer holding herself so tightly. Rowan and Michael, shoulder to shoulder, forming their own quiet constellation of partnership. Mark, doing his best to sit still, but vibrating with the invisible hum of childhood. Jenna, brave enough to sit among people she barely knows. Mara's heart warms. This table has held years of stories, but tonight feels particularly tender, like something important has brought them all here, whether they recognize it or not. She clears her throat softly, and the room settles. The candlelight steadies. People lean in. "I'm glad you're all here," Mara says. The words are simple, but they land with weight, as though each one carries its own small warmth. I know the holidays aren't the same for any two people. We come into this season carrying a lot. Good things, hard things, everything in between. Heads nod, shoulders shift, the truth of it hums gently. "So before we start," she continues, "I thought maybe we could share one small mercy from this year. Just one thing that helped you through, big or small, something that reminded you you weren't alone." There was a soft pause, curious pause, not resistance, just the hesitation of people who aren't accustomed to speaking openly about delicate things. Mara didn't push them into it. She stepped into it first. "I'll go," she says. The room tilts towards her. The table listens. "This year," she begins, "there were days when the house felt too quiet. I missed my mother more than usual. I missed the years when the kids were little and the noise felt endless. I missed everything that made the house feel full." Mark watches her solemnly, as if the concept of a quiet house is a foreign tragedy. "One night," Mara continues, "I made tea the way my mother used to, her winter blend with cloves and orange peel. I thought it would comfort me, but instead it brought back memories I wasn't ready for, the kind that ache." Jenna's eyes softened. But then the phone rang. It was Rowan. She didn't know anything about my night. She just wanted to tell me a funny story about Mark trying to convince the librarian that penguins hibernate on the moon. Mark nods as though this is a valid scientific claim. Mara smiles. That call was a mercy. A reminder that even when the house is quiet, I'm not alone. Love changes shape, but it stays. She looked around the table. "That's mine." A silence settles, but it isn't heavy, it's thoughtful. Then Tom clears his throat. "I'll go next," he says. Mara nods, grateful. Tom draws a slow breath. "After my wife died, I didn't know how to do anything alone. Not the big things, not the small things. The small things hurt the most. Grocery lists, sorting mail, making chili for one. This year," he continued, "I got sick. Not seriously, I just sick enough to knock me over. And I didn't want to bother anyone. Didn't want to be a burden. But Mara showed up anyway. With soup," Tom continued, "and a thermometer, and a stubbornness I couldn't argue with. She fussed over me like," his voice wavers slightly, "like I was still worth fussing over." Mara inhales a tight breath. "You are." Tom nods once. "Her showing up, that was my mercy." Rowan reaches across the table and lays her hand gently on his. Tom accepts the gesture without flinching. Good sign. Lena wipes her eyes before speaking. "I've won too. This year has been long. My dad's recovery, the worry, the late nights, the appointments. She exhales shakily. A few weeks ago, I fell asleep sitting next to his bed. When I woke up, he draped the blanket over me. She smiles through tears. He was so weak, but he still wanted to take care of me. Michael murmurs, "That's love." It's a small mercy I really needed. Jenna shifts slightly in her seat before speaking. Her voice is quiet but clear. When I moved here in March, I didn't know anyone. I walked past houses at dinner time and wondered what it would be like to belong to any of them. One night, I dropped my grocery bag on the sidewalk. Apples everywhere. I just froze. I was so tired. The room holds its breath. A stranger picked them up with me, Jenna says softly. She just said, "Rough day. It won't always feel like this." I've held on to that sentence all year. Mara places her hand over Jenna's. "I'm glad you're here." Jenna nods, swallowing thickly. Mark bursts forward, unable to wait another second. "My mercy is when I was scared because it was dark, and Mama turned on my starlight and said even the dark has room for stars." Laughter warms the table. Mara's eyes glisten. The wisdom of children always lands straight. The room shifts, just a small tilt, but unmistakable. The sharing has softened something, repaired something, turned the night towards warmth again. Mara looks around the table, struck by the quiet strength in every face. "Thank you," she says, "for sharing, for being brave, for being here." The table feels full, not just with bodies, but with truth. And turning mercy has done its quick work. And the night gently begins to glow. The meal and the blessing. The first sounds after "let's eat" are soft and satisfying. The gentle scrape of serving spoons, the clink of ceramic plates, the rustle of napkins unfolding. A few quiet hums of appreciation rise as bowls move from hand to hand. Nothing about the moment is hurried. Everything is deliberate, unforced, as if the room itself refuses to rush what has just begun mending. Mara sits only after everyone else has started passing dishes. She places her napkin on her lap and takes in the aromas swirling up from the spread before them. Roasted vegetables, caramelized at the edges, herb-buttered rolls, a bowl of cinnamon apples waiting near the candles, and the faint sweetness of clementines still resting in their pottery bowl. It's a simple meal, but it feels abundant. Rowan scoops potatoes first, then hands the bowl to Tom with a gentle reminder. "Careful, they're still hot." "I'll take my chances," Tom replies, his voice lighter than it was an hour ago. Lena takes a few spoonfuls of vegetables, pausing to inhale their warmth. Caring for her father had made her forget how food tastes when someone else prepares it with intention. Her shoulders drop as she takes the first bite. Jenna hesitates before taking a roll. "Sorry, I don't mean to grab the last one." "That's not the last one," Michael says, reaching beneath the sideboard to retrieve a second basket. "We learned a long time ago to never bring just one plate of rolls to this table." Everyone chuckles. Across the table, Mark builds a potato mountain and crowns it with a sprig of parsley. "It's a winter mountain," he exclaims proudly, "with a tree." The adults admire it with theatrical seriousness. The room settles even more. Outside, twilight deepens into a soft indigo. The windows reflect the glow within, the flickering candles, the curve of shoulders leaning towards one another, the hush of contented conversation. Inside, warmth gathers like a breath on glass. "Is that sage in the stuffing?" Rowan asks, savoring it. "The last of the garden." Mara says. It survived the frost longer than I expected. Tom snorts. Stubborn herb in a stubborn garden. Mara lifted an eyebrow. Are you calling me stubborn? I'm calling your sage determined. Tom replies with mock innocence. Lena chuckles into her plate. The sound of the meal, the clinks, the murmured appreciations, the soft scrape of forks layer themselves like the softest music. Nothing loud, nothing sharp, just the rhythm of people beginning to rest. Halfway through the meal, Rowan clears her throat. I've a theory, she announces. Every holiday gathering needs at least one minor disaster to tell stories about later. Oh no, Mara says. Should I be concerned? No, Rowan replies. Tonight's has already happened. The Great Spoon Thunder. Mark gasps theatrically. It did sound like thunder. And yet we survived, Rowan teases. The table laughs, and just like that, the earlier tension becomes a story rather than a shadow. This is how gatherings heal. By turning aches into anecdotes, by letting time soften the edges of what hurt. As plates begin to empty and conversations trail to comfortable pauses, Mara feels something shifting inside her. Not sadness, not exhaustion, something warm and rising. She sets down her fork and stands, palms resting lightly on the back of her chair. The room responds instantly, quieting, orienting towards her. She doesn't tap her glass. She doesn't need to. The room is listening. I don't usually offer a blessing after the meal, but tonight feels like the right night for one. The candlelight leans toward her as though waiting. Before we ate, she continues, we shared our small mercies. Listening to all of you, it reminded me why this table matters, why we gather at all. Her eyes passed over each person in turn. This season invites us to celebrate, but it also invites us to rest, to remember that we don't have to arrive perfect or bright. We can come exactly as we are, tired, hopeful, uncertain, healing, and still be welcomed. Tom nods slowly. Lena's chin trembles just a bit. Jenna breathes out the breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Rowan takes Michael's hand beneath the table, and Mark watches solemnly, like something important is happening. Mara continues, so my blessing tonight is this. May you find quiet moments in the days ahead. May you notice the small mercies that carry you. May you feel the warmth where you expect cold, and companionship where you expect solitude. And may you always remember that this table, literal or not, has a place for you. Silence follows, but it's a holy silence, full, restful, unbroken by anything except the soft crackle of candles. Tom clears his throat first. Thank you, Mara. Beautiful, Lena whispers. Best blessing ever, Mark declares, unable to hold it in any longer. Laughter spills lightly across the room again. Dessert follows. Warm cinnamon apples with sweet cream. Conversation loosens. People lean closer. Tom tells a story about the time he set the tree lights on fire. Just a little fire, he insists. Lena talks about her father's fascination with game shows. Jenna reminisces about building snow lanterns with her grandmother. Mark tries to convince Michael that his peas form a constellation. And bit by bit, joy softens into contentment. This is the part of the night Mara treasures most, the moments after fullness and before farewell, when people linger not because they must, but because some part of them has begun to heal. By the time the plates are cleared, the room glows. Not just from the candles, but from the simple truth that, for this moment, every person here is held. The blessing has settled, the meal has done its work, and the evening tilts gently toward its final chapter. Closing at winter's edge. By the time the last of the dessert plates are scraped clean and the final glasses are set aside, the night has taken on a quieter glow. The heart of the gathering has softened into an afterglow, gentle, warm, lingering. No one rushes to stand. No one reaches for a coat. People remain at the table because it feels good to stay. The candle on the sideboard is burned low, its flame bobbing slightly each time the furnace hums. The sprigs of pine have relaxed in the warmth, releasing a deeper scent. The clementines still gleam in the bowl, one missing because Mark tucked it into his pocket for a midnight emergency. Mara stands for a moment and simply takes it all in. Tom folding his napkin with quiet satisfaction. Lena resting her cheek briefly in her hand, her face unworried for the first time in weeks. Jenna tracing the rim of her glass, absorbing the feeling of belonging. Rowan and Michael leaning close, exhausted but content. Mark asleep on 2 chairs pushed together, Rowan's scarf draped over him like a small blessing. It's the picture of a winter evening done well. Nothing perfect, but everything right. Eventually, the spell breaks, not abruptly, but with the natural rhythm of people who know they should leave but don't truly want to. Tom rises first, slow and careful. "Thank you," he tells Mara as she helps him into his coat. The words carry more weight than politeness. "Drive safe," she says. "I will." Lena wraps her scarf loosely around her neck. "Tonight's meant more to me than I can say," she murmurs. Mara squeezes her hand. "You've said enough." Michael lifts a sleeping Mark into his arms. The boy's head lolls against his father's shoulder, mouth open in the sweet abandon of deep sleep. Rowan tucks the scarf more securely around him and kisses Mara's cheek. "We'll see you tomorrow, Mom." "Let him sleep," Mara whispers. "We will," Rowan promises. Then comes Jenna. She pauses with her coat in her hands, unsure whether she is supposed to hug or simply say goodbye. Mara decides it for her, stepping forward and embracing her gently. "Thank you for letting me be part of this," Jenna whispers. "You belong here," Mara says. "You did from the moment you walked in." Jenna nods, blinking fast. "I'll remember tonight for a long time." "I hope you do," Mara says. One by one, they depart. Mara watches through the window as taillights drift down the street. Tom's careful turn, Lena's slow roll around the corner, Rowan and Michael buckling Mark in with practiced grace. Snowless though the night may be, the air outside carries the hush of winter. When the final car disappears, Mara closes the door and returns to the table. She doesn't clear it, not yet. The table holds the echo of the gathering. Empty plates, a crooked napkin, a forgotten fork, a few pine needles, the folded star Mark created. These aren't messes, they're traces of presence, proof that the night was real. She rests her hands on the back of her chair and breathes. This table has carried so many winters. The year after her mother passed, when every meal felt like walking on soft bruises. The year the kids were all home and the noise filled every corner. The first year Jenna came, when she didn't know she would become part of the story. The years of heartbreak, of healing, of laughter, of change. And now this one. A winter marked not by grand celebrations, but small mercies shared in the glow of candlelight. The house seemed to exhale, as if settling into its own rest. Mara walks to the window. The street lamps cast pools of light on the frost-dusted lawns. A few houses still glow from within, tiny pockets of warmth against the early winter dark. She presses her fingertips lightly to the cold window pane. The quiet outside is vast, but the quiet inside is soft. She turns back toward the table. It gleams faintly, reflecting the last of the candle's glow. In the near dark, it looks almost ageless, steady, humble, ready to bear whatever stories the next season brings. Mara steps back into the room, letting this final moment settle into her bones. This is what winter means to her now. Not the cold, not the dark, not the emptiness, but the gathering, the mercy, the warmth waiting at the table's edge. She picks up the candle and blows it out. The wick glows red, then fades. In the dimness, she feels no loneliness, only the lingering presence of those who shared the night with her. She pauses at the doorway, hand on the frame, looking once more at the table resting in shadow and memory. Then, softly, she speaks a benediction meant only for the room, yet somehow for the world as well. May the light find its way back to us again and again, until it feels like home. She closes the door behind her, and the house, full of memory of warmth, rests with her. Thank you for listening. Holiday Table grew out of a love for the ordinary moments that end up meaning the most, the ones that happen around familiar tables, shared meals, and quiet company. Telling this story reminded me how much comfort lives in small gestures, how much we carry one another, often without realizing it. If this story brought a memory to the surface, I hope you let it stay with you a while. Wherever you are, and however you mark this season, I wish you the warmth, gentleness, and moments of true connection. Happy holidays. Thank you for being here.